You are standing in the middle of a wild barley field about 9,000 years ago, feeling the dry heat of a midsummer afternoon press against your skin, when suddenly you find yourself staring at a forgotten clay jar tucked away under a ledge. Inside, there is a bubbling, murky liquid that smells slightly pungent, yet oddly inviting. Congratulations, you have just witnessed the moment that changed the course of human history, or at least the way we behave on a Friday night. Hey guys, tonight we are going on a slow, hazy journey back to the very first time a human being decided that fermented grain juice was a better idea than plain water. Imagine standing in a prehistoric settlement where the air smells of wood smoke and damp earth, and someone suggests that this bubbling, sour liquid in the bottom of a stone vat is actually a gift from the heavens. It's the dawn of the happy hour, but without the neon signs or the half-price appetizers. I'm telling you, you probably wouldn't survive a single night in a Neolithic tavern, mostly because the tavern was just a muddy floor and the beer probably had chunks of bread and stray insects floating in it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Drop your location and local time in the comments. It's always peaceful to think of us all gathered here, across different time zones, ready to drift off. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take a deep breath. The Neolithic air isn't filled with engine exhaust. It's thick with the scent of wild herbs and a sharp, yeasty tang wafting from that earthen jar. You crouch down, using a hollowed-out reed to poke through the foamy surface. As you take a sip, a gentle warmth spreads from your throat down to your toes. That's not a miracle. It's ethanol, humanity's oldest and most complicated friend. Archaeologists often argue whether humans settled down to grow wheat for bread, or if they actually did it just to have a steady supply of booze. Imagine that. Our ancestors might have given up the freedom of wandering the earth, accepting the headaches of taxes and grumpy neighbors, just to ensure the fireside party never ran dry. Mainstream history says agriculture was the bedrock of civilization, but a little-known fact is that some of the earliest chemical traces of brewing come from the Jiahu site in ancient China, where they mixed rice, honey, and hawthorn fruit into a prehistoric cocktail. It wasn't like anything you'd buy at a store today. It was probably as thick as porridge and gave you a monumental headache the next morning. You find yourself sitting on the cool dirt, surrounded by hunters who are starting to laugh a little louder than usual. A man with a tangled beard tries to explain how spirit birds blessed the jar, while in reality, wild yeast spores simply landed in the right place at the right time. The funny thing is, being intoxicated back then wasn't viewed as a vice. Quite the opposite, that lightheaded feeling was considered a direct line to the spiritual world. When you felt the ground tilt slightly, you didn't think you needed to lie down. You thought you were finally starting to understand the language of the stars. Historians are still debating whether massive stone structures like Göbekli Tepe were actually the sites of the world's first massive keggers. Imagine helping to haul a multi-ton limestone pillar while still feeling the effects of fermented honey. It's certainly one way to build a world wonder with enthusiasm. You look at your hands, stained with the dust of the earth, but you don't mind. In the stillness of the prehistoric night, the crackle of the fire and the rustle of the wind in the grain feel like they are beating in time with your own heart. You realize that no matter the era, humans have always looked for a small escape from the harshness of reality. And here, by this crude ceramic jar, you found a sense of absolute relaxation. There are no email notifications, no sirens, just you and the beginning of a habit that would span millennia. Humanity's first buzz was likely very slow, much like the time it takes for yeast to convert sugar. You wonder if they had a concept of drinking responsibly. Probably not, considering that even walking in a straight line was a challenge for a species that had only recently mastered standing on two legs. You smile thinking about a Stone Age guy trying to flirt by showing off his collection of polished snail shells after one too many bowls of mead. The sky above you is pitch black and brimming with stars, unclouded by artificial light. You feel small, but incredibly warm. That ancient glow from the drink is still there, rocking you into a hazy state of mind. You close your eyes for a moment, letting your imagination drift away from these first barley fields and toward the sun-drenched valley of the Nile, where beer became more than just a drink. It became a religion. But stay here for just a moment longer, in the breath of the earth and the heavy scent of the first ferments, because our journey is just beginning and the night is very long. Can you hear the crickets? They are as steady as a biological clock, reminding you that everything in nature has its own rhythm. Even the fermentation of grain is a delicate chemical dance. You feel your eyelids growing heavy, but you still want to linger to see if the tribal chief is going to sing a song about the great bison. The ancient world was simple, and sometimes that simplicity is the best lullaby. Don't worry about what comes next, because in this world, time flows as slowly as honey being poured into a bowl. You are safe, wrapped in the gentle darkness of history, where every breath carries the softness of our oldest memories. Loosen your shoulders, relax your mind. We are drifting on the timeline, and while the next stop will be bright with the golden sun of Egypt, for now, the rustic charm of the Neolithic is the warmest blanket you could ask for. You know, maybe the only reason we invented writing was to record beer recipes, because no one wanted to forget how to make joy after a long day of hunting and gathering. A proper set of priorities from our ancestors, wouldn't you agree? As the cool, damp air of the Neolithic caves begins to fade, you feel the temperature rise, replaced by the dry, golden heat of the Sahara. The soft rustle of barley fields transforms into the rhythmic splashing of the Nile's oars against the water. You are now in ancient Egypt, around 3000 BCE, standing on the sun-baked mud bricks of a bustling brewery in Memphis. The smell here is different. It's sweeter, heavier, like a bakery that decided to throw a massive party. You see workers crouching over large ceramic vats, their arms dusted with flour as they crumble half-baked loaves of beer bread into water. This was the secret to the pyramid builder's strength. A thick, nutritious, slightly alcoholic porridge that served as both breakfast and paycheck. In this era, you aren't just drinking for fun, you are drinking for survival. The water of the Nile, while life-giving, wasn't always the safest choice, but the fermentation process acted as a natural filter, making beer the most trusted beverage in the land. Even the children drank it. Imagine a world where your morning cereal was actually a bowl of foamy, unrefined ale. You find yourself sitting in the shade of a palm tree, watching the horizon where the Great Pyramid of Giza is slowly rising. You hear the rhythmic chants of the laborers, and you realize that every single stone moved was likely fueled by a daily ration of about 4 to 5 liters of beer. You'd probably find it hard to lift a remote control after that much, yet they were moving mountains. The Egyptians were so obsessed with their brew that they had a specific goddess for it, Tenenet. But more importantly, there was Sekhmet, the lioness goddess of war. There is a fascinating, little-known legend that tells of how Sekhmet once went on a rampage so violent that she threatened to wipe out all of humanity. To save us, the sun god Ra didn't use a lightning bolt or a grand speech. He simply dyed 7,000 jars of beer blood red and scattered them across the fields. Sekhmet, thinking it was blood, drank until she was so incredibly drunk that she couldn't even stand up, let alone destroy the world. She woke up the next morning with what must have been the world's first divine hangover and forgot all about her murderous plans. Historians still debate whether this myth was a way to explain the red silt during the Nile's flooding or just a very early endorsement for taking the edge off with a cold one. You lean back against the rough bark of the tree, feeling the fine desert sand between your toes. There's a strange comfort in knowing that the people who built the wonders of the world were just like you, tired after a long day, looking for a bit of liquid relaxation. In the shadows of the brewery, you notice a woman using a straw to drink from a deep jar. Because their beer wasn't filtered, it was full of husks and stalks, so straws were a practical necessity rather than a fashion choice. It looks surprisingly peaceful, the way the straw filters out the noise of the world along with the grain. You realize that getting wasted in ancient Egypt wasn't about losing control. It was a communal act, a way to connect with the divine while keeping your belly full. The sun begins to dip lower, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and burnt orange. The heat of the day is retreating, leaving behind a soft, lingering warmth on the stones. You feel a deep sense of calm. There's no rush here. The Nile has been flowing for thousands of years, and it will flow for thousands more. You watch a group of scribes sitting nearby, their reed pens set aside as they pass around a communal bowl. They are laughing softly, their voices carried away by the evening breeze. It's a reminder that beneath the grand titles and the golden masks, history is made of these small, quiet moments. The Egyptians even included beer in their tombs, ensuring the deceased wouldn't be thirsty in the afterlife. They believed that the Field of Reeds was essentially a paradise with endless breweries. You have to admire that kind of consistency, planning your eternal vacation around your favorite drink. As you drift deeper into this golden, hazy memory, you can almost taste the sweetness of the dates and honey they use to flavor their specialty batches. It's a heavy, soothing thought. You feel your breath slowing down, matching the slow, steady pulse of the river. The world of ancient Egypt is vast and mysterious, but right now it feels as intimate as a whisper. The heavy jars, the golden grain, the soft laughter of the workers, it all blends into a tapestry of sound that wraps around you like a linen shroud. You are far away from the stresses of the modern world, tucked into a time where a bowl of beer was a blessing and the stars were the only map you needed. Isn't it funny how we think we've changed so much, yet we still look for that same feeling of enough? The Egyptians had a word for being drunk that translated roughly to, his heart is happy. It wasn't a medical diagnosis, it was a state of being. You feel your own heart softening, the tension leaving your neck and shoulders. The desert night is coming, and with it a coolness that invites you to close your eyes. The spirits of the Nile are watching over you, and the lioness goddess is fast asleep, dreaming of red-dyed ale. As the darkness settles over the valley, you feel yourself slipping away from the pyramids, the scent of fermentation fading into something sharper, more herbal. The journey continues, but the peace of the Nile stays with you. You are floating on a stream of time, carried by the currents of history toward the next stop on our long, drowsy walk through the past. Let the hum of the fan or the silence of your room be your river. You are safe, you are drifting, you are exactly where you need to be. The golden sands of Egypt begin to blur at the edges, and the air grows even heavier, thick with the scent of lilies and the damp, fertile silt of the riverbanks during the Opet festival. You are moving deeper into the heart of Thebes during the New Kingdom, where the concept of getting wasted transcends daily survival and enters the realm of the ecstatic. Here, the ritual of drunkenness is a high art form. You find yourself reclining on a woven mat inside a torchlit villa. The walls are painted with vibrant scenes of papyrus thickets, and the air is cool despite the crowded room. Beautiful servants move among the guests, placing cones of scented fat on their heads that slowly melt in the warmth, dripping perfumed oil down their linen robes. This is the festival of drunkenness, a celebration so intense it would make a modern music festival look like a quiet tea party. You see people around you drinking from massive chalices of wine. Not the thick beer of the laborers, but a refined, deep red vintage from the Delta, flavored with pomegranate and mandrake. The goal here isn't just to relax, it's to reach a state of unconsciousness that allows you to commune with the goddess Hathor. There's a strange, beautiful irony in it. The more you lose yourself to the drink, the closer you supposedly get to the divine. You watch a nobleman nearby who has clearly reached that spiritual threshold. He's slumped against a pillar, smiling at a vision only he can see, while a harpist plays a melody that seems to vibrate in the very marrow of your bones. A little-known fact about these elite parties is that they actually encouraged overindulgence to the point of sickness. In many tomb paintings, you can see guests being assisted by servants as they lose their dinner, and far from being a moment of shame, it was recorded as a sign of a successful, holy night. It was a physical purging to make room for the spirit. You might think, I definitely wouldn't survive this level of hospitality, especially since the wine was often spiked with blue lotus flowers, which had mild psychotropic effects. Historians still debate whether the blue lotus was a decorative symbol or a legitimate ancient party drug, infused into the wine to induce a dreamlike sedative state. As you watch the lotus petals float in your own cup, you feel the room begin to sway, not with dizziness, but with a slow, rhythmic pulse. The laughter around you is melodic, muffled by the heavy tapestries hanging from the ceiling. You notice that even the pet monkeys under the tables are nibbling on discarded grapes, looking just as dazed as the guests. There is no judgment here, only a collective surrender to the night. You feel the cool oil from your head cone trickling down your temple, a sensation so soothing it makes you want to hum along with the harp. This isn't the chaotic, loud intoxication of the modern world. It's a controlled, ritualistic descent into a collective dream. You are part of a tradition that believes joy is a duty, and that the gods love a happy heart. You realize that for the ancient Egyptians, the boundary between the living and the dead, the human and the divine, was as thin as a translucent linen veil. And tonight, with the help of the vine, that veil has been lifted entirely. You feel a profound sense of safety in this crowded room. The torches flicker, casting long, dancing shadows on the hieroglyphs that line the walls, symbols of life, stability, and power that seem to wink at you in the dim light. You aren't a stranger here. You are a guest of the ages. As the party reaches its peak, the music slows down. The high-energy flutes are replaced by the deep, resonant thrum of a lute. The guests begin to curl up on their mats, right where they are, falling into a deep, wine-induced slumber under the watchful eyes of the servants. The festival of drunkenness ends not with a bang, but with a universal exhale. You feel your own head nodding, the scented oil having worked its magic on your senses. The air is still, save for the distant sound of the Nile's waves lapping against the stone quays of the temple. It's fascinating to think that these people who calculated the movements of the stars and engineered the most enduring structures on Earth also valued the simple act of letting go. They knew that the mind needs to rest, and sometimes it needs a little help to find that rest. You feel the tension in your jaw dissolve. The villa, the torches, and the scent of lotus begin to recede into the back of your mind, leaving only a warm, fuzzy glow. You are drifting now, the Egyptian night folding over you like a soft, dark wing. The journey through the history of the high spirits is taking us away from the African heat, across the Mediterranean, toward the dusty crossroads of Mesopotamia. But don't wake up just yet. Let the image of the sleeping pharaohs stay with you. In their world, a hangover was just the price of a conversation with a goddess. In your world, it's just time to sink a little deeper into your pillow. The stars over Thebes are the same stars over your roof, steady and silent. Sleep now, for the cradle of civilization is a very comfortable place to rest your head. The fragrant lilies and cooling oils of Egypt evaporate into the dry, dusty air of a fertile plain between two great rivers. You are now in Mesopotamia, the land of Sumer and Akkad, walking through the narrow, winding streets of Uruk. The ground beneath your feet is hard-packed clay, and the air carries a heavy, toasted aroma, the scent of the world's first professional breweries. Here, beer isn't just a festival treat. It is the very fabric of society. In fact, if you were a builder or a scribe in this city, you wouldn't be asking for a salary in silver. You'd be holding out your bowl for a daily ration of kas, a beer so thick and nutritious it was often called liquid bread. You find yourself stepping into a dim, cool tavern tucked away near the city gates. This isn't a rowdy man cave. In Mesopotamia, the tavern keepers and brewers are almost exclusively women. You are greeted by the sabitu, the woman of the house, who oversees the massive clay vats with a watchful eye. She hands you a long, hollow reed straw. In this era, everyone from kings to commoners drinks through a straw to bypass the thick layer of fermenting grain and bread floating on top. As you take a long, slow draw of the cool liquid, you notice the taste is complex, sweet from dates, earthy from the barley, and surprisingly refreshing. You'd probably find it a bit strange to eat your beer through a straw, and you certainly wouldn't survive a lunch break here if you weren't used to the 4% alcohol content that comes with every meal. A little-known fact that adds a bit of weight to your bowl is the Code of Hammurabi, one of the oldest sets of laws in history. It had very specific and rather terrifying rules for these taverns. If a tavern keeper was caught overcharging her customers or watering down the beer, the punishment wasn't a fine or a bad Yelp review. It was being thrown into the river. You can imagine the Sabitu being very precise with her measurements tonight. There's a certain peace in knowing that in this ancient world, the quality of your drink was a matter of life and death. As you sit on a wooden stool, watching the light from an oil lamp flicker against the cuneiform tablets drying on a shelf, you feel a deep sense of order amidst the haze. Historians still debate whether the Sumerians actually worshipped beer, or if their famous hymn to Ninkasi was simply a clever way to remember a complicated recipe in a society where not everyone could read. Ninkasi is the goddess who waters the malt and makes the hearth spread a pleasant aroma. As the words of the hymn are chanted softly in the background of the tavern, you realize this isn't just a song, it's a prayer for a good night's sleep. The Mesopotamians believed that beer was a gift that separated humans from the wild animals. It was a mark of civilization to be able to sit, drink, and feel the happy liver that the Sumerian poets wrote so fondly about. You watch the shadows of the reed baskets dance on the walls. Outside, the sun is setting over the ziggurat, a massive stepped pyramid that seems to reach for the heavens. The city is quietening down. The merchants are packing away their copper and lapis lazuli, and the only sound is the distant braying of a donkey and the soft bubbling of the fermentation vats. You feel the weight of your own happy liver now, a warmth that makes the wooden stool feel like a plush throne. The stress of your modern life feels as distant as a star in a different galaxy. Here, the biggest worry is whether the grain harvest will be plentiful, and tonight, the granaries are full. There is an old Sumerian proverb that says, "He who does not know beer does not know good." You find yourself nodding in agreement, your eyes drifting shut for a moment. The Mesopotamians were the first to turn the accidental fermentation of the Neolithic into a regulated, cherished industry. They gave us the first happy hour, the first straws, and the first laws for consumer protection. As you linger in the Sabitu's tavern, you feel a connection to those ancient workers who sat in this very spot 5,000 years ago, feeling the same gentle hum in their ears and the same heaviness in their limbs. The air in the tavern grows cooler as the desert night takes over. The Sabitu begins to cover the vats with heavy linen cloths to keep out the evening chill. You feel a sense of security, tucked away in the cradle of civilization, protected by the thick mud walls of the city. The gods of Mesopotamia, Enlil, Inanna, and Enki, are distant figures, but Ninkasi feels very close, her presence felt in the rhythmic breathing of the sleeping patrons around you. You are floating now, leaving the clay streets of Uruk behind. The scent of toasted barley is being replaced by the salty tang of the Mediterranean Sea and the sharp, clean smell of pine and mountain herbs. Our journey is moving west toward the marble temples of Greece, where the drink will change from golden grain to the dark, mysterious blood of the vine. But carry the stillness of the tavern with you. You are part of a long line of travelers who have found rest in the bottom of a cup. Let your mind be as steady as the flow of the Euphrates. You are sinking deeper, drifting further, and the ancient world is whispering you to sleep. The dusty taverns of Mesopotamia dissolve into the crisp, salty air of the Aegean Sea. You are now in ancient Greece around 400 BCE, walking up a marble staircase toward a private villa in Athens. The sun has just set, leaving a trail of bruised gold across the horizon, and the air is filled with the scent of roasted lamb, wild thyme, and something sharp and resinous, the famous Retsina wine, preserved with pine pitch. You are invited to a symposium, a gathering of drinkers. But this isn't the chaotic revelry you might expect. Here, getting wasted is a highly intellectual, almost mathematical endeavor, governed by a symposiarch, the master of the feast who decides exactly how much water will be mixed with the wine tonight. You find yourself reclining on a cline, a cushioned couch, leaning on your left elbow as a young servant approaches with a large, beautifully painted crater. In Greece, only barbarians drink their wine neat. To do so is considered dangerous and uncivilized, a shortcut to madness. Tonight, the ratio is 3 parts water to 1 part wine, a mixture designed to keep the conversation flowing and the spirits high without losing one's dignity. As you take your first sip from a shallow, two-handled cup called a kylix, The taste is diluted but vibrant, flavored with honey and spices. You'd probably find this watered down version a bit disappointing at a modern party, and you certainly wouldn't survive the intense philosophical debates that are the mandatory side dish to every drink here. A little known fact that might make your head spin more than the alcohol is the Greek obsession with the middle ground. They believed wine was a mirror, it showed a man's true soul. To help this process along, they often played a game called kotabos. You watch a guest across the room finish his wine, then expertly flick the last dregs from his cup at a bronze target in the center of the room, hoping for a satisfying clang to prove his romantic prospects are bright. It's a bit like ancient beer pong, but with more poetry and significantly more expensive pottery. Historians still debate whether these games were a way to practice coordination while tipsy, or simply a way to keep the servants busy cleaning up wine stains. As the night progresses, the flute girls begin to play a soft, haunting melody that echoes against the marble columns. You listen to a philosopher nearby, perhaps a student of Plato, discussing the nature of love, his voice rising and falling in a rhythmic cadence that acts like a vocal massage. There is an incredible sense of safety in this structured indulgence. The Greeks knew that wine could be a gift from Dionysus or a curse, and tonight, under the steady hand of the symposiarch, it feels like a warm embrace. You feel the tension in your legs evaporate as you sink deeper into the embroidered cushions, the cool marble floor beneath you, providing a grounding contrast to the lightheadedness beginning to set in. You look at the bottom of your kylix, where a painted scene of a sailing ship appears as the liquid disappears. It feels symbolic. You are sailing on a sea of thought, guided by the stars and the vine. The Greeks had a word for the pleasant, hazy state you're in, thorax, which literally meant wearing a breastplate. It was the feeling of being protected, fortified against the worries of the world by a gentle layer of intoxication. You feel that breastplate now, a soft, invisible shield that keeps the stress of tomorrow at bay. The torches in the room are burning low, casting long, flickering shadows of the participants against the white walls. The heated arguments about politics and ethics have softened into quiet murmurs and shared laughter. Outside, the owls of Athena are calling from the olive groves, a sound so ancient and steady that it feels like the heartbeat of the city. You realize that for all their logic and science, the Greeks recognize that the human mind needs these moments of divine madness to remain sane. You feel your eyelids fluttering, the rhythmic Greek syllables of the guests blending into a soothing white noise. The scent of the pine resin wine lingers in the air, a clean, sharp memory of the mountains and the sea. You are no longer a guest in a villa. You are a traveler drifting on the current of history, moving away from the intellectual heights of Athens towards something more primal, more untamed. As the symposium draws to a close, the guests don't stumble out. They are led home by the soft light of oil lamps, their hearts light and their minds at peace. You are following them, but your path leads into the deep, dark woods of the Thracian mountains, where the rules of the city don't apply and the wine is never watered down. But for now, just let the symmetry of the marble columns and the logic of the philosophers lull you. You are held in the balance of the Greek ideal, neither too sober nor too drunk, but perfectly, blissfully at rest. The world is in order, and you are exactly where you belong. The orderly marble columns of Athens begin to twist and transform into the gnarled ancient trunks of a dark forest in Thrace. You have left the intellectual safety of the city and entered the wild, moonlit world of the Maenads. The air here is no longer dry and salty. It is thick with the scent of damp earth, crushed ivy, and the heavy, unwatered sweetness of dark mountain wine. In this realm, Dionysus reigns supreme, and the rules of the symposiarch are forgotten. You are participating in the Dionysian mysteries, where getting wasted isn't a social lubricant. It is a total ecstatic surrender to the primal forces of nature. You find yourself moving through the undergrowth, the cool moss pressing between your toes, as the rhythmic beat of a hand drum thumps in the distance like a second heartbeat. Here the wine is served neat, dark as oxblood and twice as potent. As you take a draught from a rough wooden bowl, the flavor is intense, overwhelmingly fruity with a hint of smoke. You probably wouldn't survive a single night in this wild procession. The followers of Dionysus the Bacchantes were known to dance for days on end until they reached a state of enthusiasmos, which literally means having the god within. It's a level of intensity that would make a modern rave feel like a library study session. A little known and rather mysterious fact about these forest rites is that they weren't just about drinking, they were about the breaking of boundaries. Women, who were usually confined to the home in Greek society, found total freedom here, roaming the mountains and wearing fawn skins. There are stories of them supposedly being able to charm wild animals or even tear them apart with their bare hands in a state of divine frenzy. Historians still debate whether these accounts were literal events or just horror stories told by city dwelling men who were terrified of what happened when the social order collapsed under the influence of the vine. As you lean against a mossy rock, watching the flickering torches dance through the trees, you feel the raw power of that ancient, untamed energy. Despite the intensity, there is a strange, hypnotic peace to be found in the chaos. The drums never stop, creating a sonic blanket that drowns out all individual thought. You feel the vibration in your chest, a steady, low-frequency hum that seems to synchronize your breathing with the forest itself. You aren't you anymore. You are just a part of the wind, the shadows, and the pulse of the earth. The Greeks believed that this state of ecstasis, standing outside oneself, was the only true way to heal a soul burdened by the heavy weight of civilization. You notice a figure nearby, draped in ivy and carrying a thyrsus, a staff tipped with a pine cone. They aren't shouting or fighting, they are simply swaying, their eyes closed, a small, knowing smile on their lips. This is the quiet side of the frenzy, the moment when the alcohol and the rhythm finally break through the walls of anxiety and leave nothing but a vast, open stillness. You feel that stillness now, spreading through your limbs like the slow-moving sap of the trees around you. The world of taxes, politics, and logic is miles away, hidden behind layers of silver moonlight and thick oak leaves. The air grows colder as the night deepens, but the heat of the wine and the constant movement keep you warm. You hear the distant cry of a mountain lion, but it doesn't frighten you. Tonight, everything is kin. You realize that getting wasted in this context was a form of radical empathy, a way to remember that humans are animals too, subject to the same cycles of growth, decay, and rebirth as the vines themselves. You are drifting now, the frantic drumming fading into a low rhythmic thrum, similar to the sound of your own blood rushing in your ears. The dark woods of Thrace are beginning to flatten out, the rugged terrain turning into the paved, orderly roads of an empire that will take the Greek vine and turn it into a global industry. You are leaving the wild god behind, but you carry a piece of his ivy with you. As the moon sets over the mountains, the frenzy subsides into a deep, exhausted calm. The followers of the vine curl up in the ferns, protected by the silence of the forest. You are following suit, letting the heavy, dark scent of the earth be your pillow. You are sinking, falling away from the wild drums and into the structured, magnificent world of Rome, where the wine will flow through aqueducts and the party will never truly end. But for now, just breathe with the trees. You are safe, you are free, you are asleep. The untamed, mossy shadows of the Thracian forest begin to sharpen into the crisp lines of white marble and the sun-drenched heat of a Mediterranean afternoon. You are now in the heart of the Roman Empire, around 100 AD, walking along the Via Appia toward a sprawling suburban estate. The air is heavy with the scent of roasted peacock, garum, that pungent fermented fish sauce the Romans loved, and the sweet, raisin-like aroma of Falernian wine. In Rome, alcohol is no longer a ritual of the woods or a philosophical debate. It is the lubricant of an empire, a status symbol, and a daily necessity that flows through the city like blood through a titan. You find yourself ushered into a triclinium, a dining room designed for the ultimate horizontal indulgence. You are reclining on a high-backed couch, your sandals removed by a silent servant, as you look out over a peristyle garden filled with splashing fountains and manicured boxwood. In Rome, the quality of what you drink defines exactly where you stand in the social hierarchy. Tonight, the host is serving a vintage that has been aged for 20 years in a sealed amphora, thickened with honey and infused with expensive spices like saffron and myrrh. As you take your first sip from a silver cup, the liquid is heavy, almost syrupy, and incredibly potent. You would probably find it much too sweet for a modern palate, and you certainly wouldn't survive the conversacio, the dedicated drinking session that begins only after the multi-course meal has ended, where the king of the feast dictates how many cups everyone must drain in a single go. A little known fact that highlights the Roman obsession with logistics is that they actually had wine bars called thermopolia on almost every street corner, serving hot, spiced wine to the masses, much like a modern coffee shop. But for the elite, the game was much more complex. They were the first to develop a primitive form of sommelier culture, where experts could tell you exactly which hillside in Campania a grape was grown on just by the scent of the cork, or rather, the terracotta seal. Historians still debate whether the infamous Roman lead pipes and the lead-based sweeteners used in their wine actually contributed to the madness of certain emperors. As you watch the sunlight glint off your silver chalice, you can't help but wonder if that slight metallic tang is just the flavor of power. The room is filled with the low hum of gossip, news from the Germanic frontier, the latest scandal in the Senate, and complaints about the price of grain. But as the wine takes hold, the world of politics begins to feel small and insignificant. You feel the Pax Romana in your own bones, a sense of immense, unshakable security. The Romans believed that wine was a gift from Liber Pater, the god of growth and freedom, and tonight you feel truly liberated from the weight of your toga. The cushions beneath you are stuffed with the finest goose down, and as you shift your weight, you feel as though you are floating on a cloud over the 7 hills. You notice the master of the house raising his cup for a toast, his face flushed with a healthy wine-induced glow. There is no urgency here. The Roman Empire feels like it will last forever, and so should this evening. You listen to the sound of a water clock dripping in the corner, a rhythmic, hypnotic sound that reminds you that while time passes, the pleasure of a good vintage is eternal. You feel your muscles untighten, the stress of the cursus honorum, the race for political office, melting away into a hazy, purple-tinted bliss. The sun finally sets, and the room is lit by dozens of bronze oil lamps, their flames flickering in the gentle breeze from the garden. The conversation has turned from politics to poetry, with someone reciting Virgil in a low, sonorous voice that acts like a warm blanket. You realize that the Romans didn't just drink to get wasted, they drank to create a world within a world, a space where the harsh realities of a violent empire could be replaced by the soft glow of luxury and the warmth of companionship. You are drifting now, the grand marble arches of Rome beginning to soften and blur. The scent of spiced wine is being replaced by something cooler, humbler, the smell of damp grain, wood smoke, and the yeasty breath of a medieval village. The empire is receding. The great stone roads are being reclaimed by the grass, and the silver chalices are being traded for wooden tankards. But the warmth in your chest remains constant. As the Roman night settles, you feel yourself sinking deeper into the cushions, the distant sound of the city's fountains lulling you into a state of total surrender. The eagles have flown home, the legions are at rest, and the amphorae are empty. You are safe in the hands of history, moving away from the luxury of the Caesars toward the rugged, honest world of the Middle Ages. But for now, just let the rhythm of the water clock be your guide. You are heavy, you are warm, and the world is at peace. Sleep, for the empire is watching over you. The grand marble villas of Rome begin to crumble into the misty emerald landscapes of northern Europe. The scent of expensive saffron and spiced wine is replaced by the honest, pungent aroma of wood smoke, damp wool, and freshly fermented grain. You are now in the year 1200, walking through a small village in the English countryside just as the sun begins to dip below the horizon. The air is cool and thick with the smell of the hearth. Here in the Middle Ages, getting wasted isn't a luxury for the elite or a ritual for the gods. It's a byproduct of staying hydrated. You find yourself ducking your head to enter a low-ceilinged alehouse, a humble building marked by a long pole with a bunch of greenery tied to the end, signaling that a fresh batch of ale has just been tapped. You take a seat on a heavy oak bench that has been smoothed by centuries of weary travelers. The floor is covered in fresh rushes and herbs like meadowsweet to mask the earthy sense of village life. In this era, water is often a gamble, but ale is a sanctuary. It's small ale, low in alcohol, thick with nutrients, and essentially the liquid fuel for every man, woman, and child in the parish. You are handed a wooden tankard, heavy and warm from being near the fire. As you take a long, slow draught, the taste is bready, sweet, and slightly smoky. There are no hops here yet. Instead, the ale is flavored with groot, a secret blend of herbs like bog myrtle, yarrow, and wild rosemary. You probably wouldn't survive a single workday here, considering the average person consumed about a gallon of this stuff every day just to keep their calories up. A little known fact that might make you smile is the role of the alewife. While the medieval world was largely dominated by men, the brewing of ale was almost entirely the domain of women. These brewsters were the backbone of the local economy. You see the mistress of the house moving briskly between the bubbling copper cauldrons and the thirsty patrons, her keys jingling at her waist. There is a fascinating, though debated, theory among historians that the classic image of the witch, the pointed hat, the broomstick, actually an ale stake, and the bubbling cauldron actually originated from these medieval alewives standing in the marketplace to sell their brew. As you watch the steam rise from your tankard, you realize that the magic in this room isn't dark. It's the simple, golden magic of community and sustenance. The atmosphere in the alehouse is cozy and boisterous, but in a muffled, rhythmic way. A traveler in the corner is playing a gittern, a small stringed instrument, and the melody is repetitive and hypnotic. You feel the tension of your long journey, whether through time or your own modern day, slowly unspooling. In the Middle Ages, the tavern was the town square, the courtroom, and the living room all rolled into one. You listen to the local farmers grumbling about the Lord's taxes and the upcoming harvest, their voices blending into a low, comforting drone. The historians still debate exactly how much these people were drunk versus just perpetually buzzed, but looking around, you see a sense of contentment that is hard to find in the age of high-speed internet. You feel the warmth of the peat fire on your shins, a steady heat that makes your limbs feel heavy and loose. There is an incredible sense of belonging here. You aren't a stranger. You are just another soul looking for a warm drink and a soft place to sit before the bells of the local monastery ring for vespers. The world outside is dark and vast, filled with superstitions and shadows, but inside these thick stone walls, the ale provides a golden circle of safety. You feel the gruit herbs starting to work their mild, sedative magic, calming your mind and softening the edges of the flickering firelight. The wooden tankard feels solid in your hand, a tangible connection to the earth and the grain. You realize that for the medieval person, life was hard and often short, but the joys were deep and communal. They didn't drink to forget who they were. They drank to remember they were together. You feel your chin dipping toward your chest, the rhythmic strumming of the gittern acting as a sonic cradle. The smell of the roasting barley is like a warm blanket, wrapping around you and shielding you from the cold English mist creeping under the door. You are drifting now, leaving the village alehouse behind. The sound of the farmers, that laughter is being replaced by the solemn, echoing chants of a stone cloister. The wooden tankards are turning into refined ceramic jugs, and the smoky hearth is being replaced by the cool, silent depths of a monastic cellar. The journey is moving from the public house to the sacred silence of the abbey, where the art of the perfect pour becomes a spiritual pursuit. As the village tavern fades into the fog, you feel a deep-rooted peace. The fire has burned down to glowing embers, and the world is settling into a quiet, honest sleep. You are safe, you are fed, and the history of the world is whispering you toward a deeper rest. Let the smell of the damp earth and the sweet ale carry you away. You are floating on the slow tide of the Middle Ages, moving toward the monks and their secret recipes. But for now, just breathe. Everything is still. Everything is well. The misty English village fades into the crisp, thin air of the Alps. You are now inside a sprawling Benedictine abbey in the 14th century, walking through a series of cold, echoing stone corridors. The only light comes in the flickering candles held by monks in dark robes, moving silently like shadows. But as you descend a narrow spiral staircase, the air changes. It becomes warmer, smelling intensely of toasted malt, dried flowers, and a new, sharp, earthy scent that tickles the back of your throat. Hops. You are entering the scriptorium of Suds, the monastic cellar where the secret of modern beer was born. You find yourself in a massive, vaulted room filled with rows of gargantuan oak barrels. A monk, whose face is etched with the calm of 1,000 prayers, hands you a ceramic mug filled with paterbier, the beer brewed specifically for the brothers to sustain them during their long fasts. This beer is different from the ale of the village. It is clear, bitter, and incredibly stable. The monks were the first to realize that adding the flowers of the hop vine didn't just add flavor, it acted as a preservative, a miracle that allowed beer to travel and age. As you take a sip, the bitterness is refreshing, cutting through the heaviness of the day. You would probably find the discipline of this life impossible, and you certainly wouldn't survive the 3 a.m. wake-up calls. But right now, the silence of the abbey feels like the ultimate luxury. A little known fact that adds a layer of mystery to your mug is that the medieval church actually promoted beer drinking as a pious act. Because the fermentation process killed bacteria, beer was God's gift to keep the flock healthy. In fact, some monks were allowed up to 5 liters of beer a day, even during the strictest Lenten fasts. They called it liquid bread. Historians still debate whether the monks' famous visions and spiritual ecstasies were purely divine, or if a day spent sampling the strongest batches in a dark, cool cellar played a small, bubbly role. As you watch the shadows of the arched ceiling dance in your cup, you feel a sense of profound, structured peace. The only sound in the cellar is the slow, rhythmic glug-glug of beer being transferred between barrels and the distant, muffled sound of the choir singing Gregorian chants upstairs. The music is monophonic, a single line of melody that seems to stretch time itself. You feel your pulse slowing down to match the tempo of the abbey. In this space, there is no rush. A barrel of beer takes months to age, just as a manuscript takes years to illuminate. You realize that the monks weren't just brewing a drink, they were brewing patience. You feel that patience now, a steady, cooling sensation that starts at the top of your head and washes down to your feet. You lean back against a cool pillar, the ceramic mug feeling heavy and grounding in your hands. There is something deeply comforting about the repetitive nature of this life, the bells, the prayers, the brewing. It's a world without surprises, where everything has its place. You look at the small window high up in the wall, where a single star is visible in the navy blue sky. You feel a connection to the infinite, not through a grand gesture, but through the simple, humble act of drinking something made with care from the fruits of the earth. The monk nods to you, his eyes kind and heavy with sleep, before he disappears into the darkness of the tun room. You are left alone in the cool silence. The scent of the hops is hypnotic, a natural sedative that was often used in pillows to help people sleep, and it's working on you now. The bitterness on your tongue turns into a floral aftertaste, and the heaviness of the oak barrels seems to anchor you to the present moment. You are safe within these thick, sacred walls. No war, no plague, and no modern anxiety can reach you here. You are drifting now, the stone arches of the abbey beginning to dissolve into the bustling, foggy streets of 18th century London. The sacred silence is being replaced by the frantic energy of the city, and the clear monastic beer is turning into the dark, dangerous mother gin. The journey is taking a sharper, more intense turn, but the peace of the cloister stays in your heart. As you leave the cellar in your mind, let the sound of the Gregorian chant become a whisper. The monks have finished their prayers, the beer is resting in the dark, and the world is tucked away for the night. You are falling deeper, moving away from the spiritual brew and toward the spirited chaos of the Enlightenment. But for now, just let the coolness of the stone and the scent of the hops lull you. You are protected. You are at rest. Sleep, for the bells have ceased, and the night is holy. The sacred silence of the abbey and the cool, bitter scent of hops dissolve into a thick yellow fog that tastes of coal smoke and damp wool. You are now in London, the year 1730, standing on a cobblestone street in the shadow of St. Paul's Cathedral. The air is chaotic, vibrating with the shouts of street vendors and the rattling of carriage wheels, but beneath it all is a sharp chemical scent that catches in your throat. The smell of juniper, turpentine, and raw grain spirit. You have entered the era of the gin craze, a time when London didn't just get tipsy, it fell into a collective delirious fever. You find yourself stepping into a gin shop, a cramped, dimly lit room where the walls are damp and the floor is covered in grimy straw. Unlike the cozy alehouses of the past, this place is built for efficiency. A sign over the door famously reads, "Drunk for a penny, dead drunk for 2 pence, clean straw for nothing." You are handed a small chipped glass of Madame Geneva. It's clear, searingly hot as it hits your tongue, and smells like a pine forest caught in a rainstorm. In this era, gin was cheaper than beer and often safer than water, leading to a city where even the ballad singers were too far gone to remember their lyrics. You definitely wouldn't survive a lunch break here, as the gin was often rectified with ingredients like sulfuric acid or lime oil to hide its rough edges. A little known fact about this period is that gin was the first urban spirit, a drink that broke the traditional social structures of the village. It was nicknamed Mother Gin, or Old Tom, and for the first time in history, women were drinking in public spaces just as much as men. This led to a moral panic that makes modern tabloid headlines look tame. Historians still debate whether the gin craze was a genuine societal collapse or if it was simply the first time the upper classes had to look at the poverty of the industrializing city through the lens of a bottle. As you lean against a rickety wooden counter, watching the flicker of a tallow candle, you feel the frantic, nervous energy of a city trying to find a moment of peace in a glass of liquid fire. Despite the grit, there's a strange, hypnotic rhythm to the London night. The fog outside acts like a heavy velvet curtain, muffling the sounds of the docks and the markets. You hear a distant fiddle playing a jagged, repetitive tune, and you feel the warmth of the gin beginning to dull the sharp edges of the cold London air. In this world, life is fast and crowded, but inside the shop, time seems to stretch and warp. You realize that for the silk weavers and dock workers around you, this wasn't about tasting notes. It was about a total, immediate erasure of the day's hardships. You feel that erasure now, a slow numbing of the senses that turns the gray London streets into a soft, hazy dreamscape. You notice an old woman in the corner, her head resting on her arms, sleeping soundly amidst the noise. There is a profound, albeit tragic, peace in her posture. The gin has provided her a sanctuary that the city could not. You feel your own shoulders drop, the tension of the 18th century bustle fading into a white noise. The scent of the juniper is oddly grounding, a sharp needle of nature in the heart of the brick and mortar jungle. You aren't part of the chaos anymore. You are just an observer, tucked away in a corner of history where the world is seen through a frosted glass. The oil lamps on the street outside begin to flicker out as the night deepens. The frantic energy of the evening is giving way to a heavy, drunken stupor that blankets the slums of St. Giles. You feel a sense of distance from the modern world's obsession with productivity. Here, for a few pennies, time simply stops. You watch the smoke from a clay pipe curl toward the ceiling, forming patterns that look like ghostly maps of forgotten lands. You are drifting now, leaving the foggy streets of London behind. The sharp scent of gin is being replaced by the salty, ozone-heavy breeze of the Atlantic Ocean and the smell of toasted sugar and tropical oak. The mother gin is turning into Kill Devil rum, and the cobblestones are turning into the creaking wooden decks of a ship of the line. The journey is moving from the slums of the city to the vast, open freedom of the high seas. As you leave the gin shop in your mind, let the sounds of the London fog wrap around you. The city is finally quiet, the lanterns are dim, and the restless souls of the 1700s have found their temporary peace. You are falling deeper, moving away from the industrial spirit and toward the sun-soaked horizons of the Caribbean. But for now, just let the warmth in your chest be your anchor. You are safe. You are drifting. Sleep, for the fog has swallowed the world and there is nothing left to do but dream. The thick, soot-stained fog of London thins out, replaced by a sudden, sharp blast of salt spray and the rhythmic creaking of massive hempen ropes. You are now on the deck of a British man-of-war in the late 1700s, sailing through the turquoise waters of the Caribbean. The sun is a fierce, golden weight on your shoulders, and the air smells of brine, tar, and the dark, sticky sweetness of molasses. This is the world of Kill Devil rum, the spirit that fueled the expansion of empires and the endurance of the world's roughest sailors. Here, getting wasted isn't just a leisure activity, it's a strategic naval policy. You find yourself standing near the grog tub, a massive brass bound oak barrel that serves as the social heart of the ship. It is 4 p.m., the time for the second daily ration. A master's mate hands you a tin cup filled with grog. 2 parts water, 1 part dark Jamaican rum, a squeeze of lime juice, and a spoonful of brown sugar. As you take a sip, the citrus cuts through the funk of the fermented molasses, and the warmth of the spirit hits you like a soft hammer. You probably wouldn't survive a single watch on this ship, as you'd be expected to climb a 100-foot mast in a gale after drinking this. But right now, with the ship rolling gently on a calm swell, the grog feels like the only thing keeping the world upright. A little known fact that saved thousands of lives is that the grog mixture wasn't actually invented to get sailors drunk. It was a health measure. Admiral Edward Vernon, nicknamed Old Grog because of his grogram cloak, ordered the rum watered down to prevent the crew from becoming stupidly intoxicated. But by adding lime to the mix to make the stagnant ship water drinkable, the British Navy accidentally stumbled upon the cure for scurvy. Historians still debate whether the British won the Napoleonic Wars because of superior tactics or because their sailors were the only ones on the high seas who weren't losing their teeth to vitamin C deficiency while being perpetually mildly buzzed. And as you lean against the warm teak railing, watching the white foam curl away from the hull, you feel the strange, disciplined peace of a life at sea. The sound of the ocean is a constant, low-frequency roar, a white noise that drowns out the anxieties of the land. You hear the distant call of a booby bird and the rhythmic thwack of a sailor mending a sail on the forecastle. There is a sense of immense freedom in this isolation. On this ship, the rules are absolute, but the horizon is infinite. You feel the rum working its way into your joints, turning the swaying of the deck into a dance rather than a struggle. You realize that for these sailors, the daily ration was the only moment of the day that truly belonged to them, a liquid sunset that signaled the end of backbreaking labor. You notice a group of old tars sitting on the hatch cover, their faces leathered by the sun, sharing stories in hushed, growling tones. They aren't shouting. They are simply existing in the moment, buffered from the harsh reality of floggings and storms by the dark, caramel-colored glow in their cups. You feel that same buffer now, a layer of mental insulation that makes the vastness of the Atlantic feel cozy rather than terrifying. The ship is a wooden world, self-contained and steady, and you are tucked safely within its belly. The sun begins to set, plunging into the ocean and leaving a trail of pink and orange light across the waves. The grog tub is covered for the night, and the piping down of the hammocks begins. You feel your own eyelids drooping in sync with the sinking sun. The scent of the rum lingers, a mixture of burnt sugar and tropical wood that feels like a heavy, warm blanket. You are far from the crowded slums of London and the silent stone cells of the monks. You are in the open, where the wind carries away every worry. You are drifting now, leaving the wooden decks and the salty spray behind. The tropical heat is cooling down, turning into the dry, electric air of an American city in the 1920s. The open horizon is closing in, replaced by the brick walls of a basement and the muffled sound of a jazz trumpet. The Kill Devil is turning into bathtub gin, and the grog tub is becoming a hidden speakeasy. The journey is moving from the law of the sea to the thrill of the forbidden. As you leave the ship in your mind, let the sound of the waves become a steady breath. The sailors are in their hammocks, the watch is set, and the ocean is a dark, peaceful cradle. You are falling deeper, moving away from the official ration and toward the secret sip. But for now, just let the rocking of the ship lull you. You are safe. You are buoyant. Sleep, for the sea is calm and the stars are the only light you need. The salty Caribbean breeze and the rhythmic creaking of the ship's timbers dissolve into the sharp electric air of a rainy New York City night in 1924. You are standing in a dark alleyway, the smell of wet asphalt and coal smoke filling your lungs. But as you approach a nondescript green door tucked behind a trash bin, you hear it, the muffled, frantic wail of a saxophone and the low, constant thrum of a bass. You give a specific sequence of knocks. A small sliding panel opens to reveal a pair of suspicious eyes, and with a whispered password, you are ushered into the smoke filled sanctuary of a speakeasy. You find yourself in a basement that has been transformed into a velvet draped palace of the forbidden. The air is thick with the scent of expensive perfume, cheap tobacco, and a sharp metallic tang. Bathtub gin. Here, getting wasted is no longer a daily ration or a religious rite. It is a high stakes act of rebellion. You are handed a bee's knees cocktail, a mixture of crude gin, heavy honey, and lemon juice, served in a delicate porcelain teacup just in case the feds decide to drop by. As you take a sip, the honey coats your throat, masking the fact that the spirit was likely distilled in a galvanized tub in a Brooklyn tenement. You probably wouldn't survive the 1920s nightlife, as the rotgut of the era was often spiked with industrial chemicals that could make your vision go blurry after just one round. A little known fact that adds a layer of irony to your teacup is that the United States government actually ordered the poisoning of industrial alcohols during Prohibition to discourage people from drinking them, leading to thousands of deaths. This turned every sip of a cocktail into a game of Russian roulette, yet the parties only got louder. Historians still debate whether Prohibition was a failed social experiment or the most effective marketing campaign in history, as it transformed alcohol from a mundane habit into the ultimate symbol of glamour and youth. As you lean against the mahogany bar, watching the flappers in their shimmering beaded dresses dance the Charleston, you feel the intoxicating hum of the forbidden. The music is a jagged, joyful noise that seems to vibrate the very ice in your glass. You realize that in this era, the cocktail was perfected not for taste, but for survival. Adding fruit juices and syrups was the only way to make the illegal, low-quality booze drinkable. There is a sense of desperate, beautiful urgency in the room. Everyone knows the party could be raided at any moment, so they live a week's worth of life in a single hour. You feel that urgency melting into a soft, rebellious calm. The world outside is trying to enforce a dry morality, but inside these walls, life is vibrant, wet, and unapologetic. You notice a man in a tuxedo sitting alone at a small table, his eyes closed as he lets the jazz wash over him. He isn't worried about the law. He is anchored by the rhythm and the warmth in his belly. You feel that same anchor now. The basement walls feel thick and protective, a hidden bunker against the gray, sober world above. The jazz is no longer a frantic noise. It becomes a repetitive, hypnotic loop that pulls your mind away from the stresses of the future. You are tucked away in a secret pocket of time where the only thing that matters is the next beat of the drum. The scent of the bathtub gin, sharp, floral, and slightly dangerous, begins to act as a strange aromatherapy. It reminds you that humans will always find a way to dance, no matter how many laws are passed. You feel your muscles go slack, the tension of being on the run from your daily life finally breaking. The speakeasy is a dreamland, a place where the rules of gravity and government don't seem to apply. You are drifting now, leaving the smoke-filled basement and the muffled jazz behind. The neon lights of the 1920s are fading, turning into the soft, flickering light of an 18th century apothecary shop. The bee's knees is turning into a bitter herbal tincture, and the jazz is being replaced by the quiet scratching of a quill on parchment. The journey is moving from the thrill of the forbidden to the strange, medical mystery of the tonic. As you leave the speakeasy in your mind, let the sound of the saxophone become a distant, soothing hum. The green door is locked, the party is safe, and the city of New York is a quiet, rainy forest of brick. You are falling deeper, moving away from the rebellion and toward the cure. But for now, just let the warmth of the honey and the thrill of the secret be your lullaby. You are hidden. You are safe. Sleep. For the night is young, but your journey is long. The frantic jazz and the shimmering sequins of the Gatsby era dissolve into the quiet, medicinal atmosphere of an 18th century European apothecary. You are standing in a shop lined with thousands of tiny blue glass bottles, their labels written in elegant, fading Latin. The air here doesn't smell of rebellion. It smells of dried roots, crushed beetles, and the sharp botanical sting of aqua vitae, the water of life. In this era, getting wasted is often disguised as a medical necessity. You are here not for a party, but for a tonic to cure your melancholy or perhaps a touch of the vapors. You find yourself sitting on a velvet stool as the apothecary prepares a specialized draught. He reaches for a bottle of absinthe, the Green Fairy, which at this time is still sold primarily as a digestive aid. He pours a measure of the emerald liquid over a sugar cube held on a perforated silver spoon, then slowly drips ice-cold water over it until the drink turns into an opaque, milky cloud. As you take a sip, the flavor of anise and wormwood is intense, bitter, herbal, and strangely cooling. You probably wouldn't survive a steady regimen of these cures, as the high-proof alcohol was often mixed with things like mercury, opium, or lead-based sweeteners to treat everything from a toothache to a broken heart. A little-known fact that might make your pulse quicken is that many of the world's most famous liqueurs, chartreuse, Benedictine, even bitters, were originally developed in these pharmacies and monasteries as life-extending elixirs. The line between a bartender and a doctor was practically non-existent. Historians still debate whether the madness attributed to artists who drank absinthe was actually caused by the wormwood, or if it was simply the result of drinking 90% proof alcohol while suffering from chronic malnutrition. As you watch the green liquid swirl in your glass, you feel a sense of clinical curiosity, the drink acting as a bridge between science and magic. The apothecary's shop is a sanctuary of order. The only sound is the rhythmic chink-chink of a mortar and pestle and the soft ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner. You feel the tonic beginning to work, but it's not the wild buzz of the speakeasy. It's a focused, cerebral warmth. The bitterness of the wormwood seems to sharpen your senses before gently numbing them. You realize that for centuries, alcohol was the world's only real anesthetic, a liquid shield against a world of physical pain. You feel that shield now, a heavy protective layer that settles over your nerves like a leaden apron. You notice the sunlight filtering through the jars of preserved herbs, casting long, colored shadows across the wooden floor. There's a profound sense of safety in this room. Every bottle represents a human attempt to control the chaos of nature. You feel your own chaotic thoughts being organized and filed away into the neat little drawers of the apothecary's cabinet. The smell of the anise is hypnotic, a scent that carries your mind away from the 18th century street and into a vast internal library where every book is a memory of a peaceful moment. The apothecary finishes his work and moves to the back of the shop, leaving you in the cooling twilight. The Green Fairy has done its job. The world is no longer a place of sharp edges and loud noises. It is a soft watercolor painting. You feel your chin resting on your hand, the ticking of the clock becoming a slow, rhythmic pulse that guides your breathing. You aren't wasted in the modern sense. You are composed, a perfectly balanced chemical equation of rest and spirit. You are drifting now, leaving the blue glass bottles and the silver spoons behind. The herbal scent of the pharmacy is being replaced by the rich floral aroma of jasmine tea and the delicate earthy sweetness of rice wine. The apothecary is turning into a court official, and the blue jars are becoming hand-painted porcelain bowls. The journey is moving from the medicine cabinet of the West to the poetic, moonlit banquets of the East. As you leave the apothecary in your mind, let the ticking of the clock become a whisper. The shop is closed, the tinctures are settled, and the city is a quiet, dark museum. You are falling deeper, moving away from the cure and toward the toast. But for now, just let the cooling sting of the anise be your guide. You are stabilized. You are peaceful. Sleep, for the chemistry of the night, is working, and the formula is perfect. The blue glass bottles and the clinical stillness of the apothecary dissolve into the soft, silk-draped elegance of a Tang Dynasty pavilion in 8th century China. You are sitting on a polished bamboo mat, the air thick with the delicate fragrance of blooming plum blossoms and the earthy, sweet aroma of warm rice wine, or huangju. The moon is a perfect silver disk reflected in a nearby lotus pond. In this world, getting wasted is not a medical necessity or a reckless act. It is the ultimate expression of poetry and friendship. You find yourself in the company of a wandering poet, perhaps Li Bai himself, who believes that 3 cups of wine can lead to the understanding of the Tao. A young attendant pours the golden liquid from a jade ewer into a small eggshell-thin porcelain cup. The wine is warm, having been gently heated in a charcoal brazier, and as you take a sip, the flavor is mellow, resembling a complex sherry with hints of toasted nuts and honey. You probably wouldn't survive a night of poetic competition here, as the tradition requires you to compose a perfect quatrain every time a floating cup reaches you in the garden's winding stream, or else you must drain your bowl in forfeit. Historians still debate whether the great poets of the East were truly more inspired while intoxicated, or if the wine simply allowed them to bypass the rigid social hierarchies of the imperial court. As you watch the steam rise from your cup, you feel a sense of profound artistic liberation. A little known fact that adds a layer of grace to the night is the intricate game of arrows, or tuhu, where guests would try to throw wooden sticks into a narrow-necked bronze jar. It was a test of coordination and composure even as the wine flowed freely. You realize that in the East, the goal of the drunkard was to reach a state of zui, which isn't the sloppy intoxication of the West, but a flow state, where the mind becomes as clear and fluid as water. You feel that fluidity now, a gentle loosening of the knots in your spirit. The moon above isn't just a rock in the sky. It feels like a companion, a silent witness to the beauty of the fleeting moment. The atmosphere is one of hushed, rhythmic beauty. The only sound is the delicate plucking of a gucheng, its notes falling like raindrops into the quiet night. You feel the warmth of the rice wine radiating from your core, making the silk of your robes feel like a second skin. In this pavilion, there is no past and no future, only the brush of the breeze and the taste of the grain. You listen to the poet recite a line about drinking alone under the moon, and you realize that even in solitude, the vine provides a bridge to the universe. You feel that connection now, a soft, cosmic hum that makes the boundaries of your own body feel less certain. The lanterns in the pavilion are dimmed, replaced by the natural glow of fireflies dancing over the water. There's an incredible sense of safety in this refined indulgence. The rules of etiquette, the le, ensure that even in deep intoxication, there is a core of respect and harmony. You feel your own breath slowing down, matching the slow, deliberate movements of the host as he offers a final toast to the night. The rice wine is a heavy, floral anchor that keeps you from drifting into the anxieties of the world. The scent of the plum blossoms is hypnotic, a natural perfume that blends with the sweetness of the wine to create a sensory lullaby. You feel your eyelids growing heavy, the silver reflection of the moon in your cup blurring into a single glowing point of light. The world of the Tang Dynasty is a place of infinite grace, where every sip is a syllable and every breath is a brushstroke. You aren't just resting, you are participating in a 1,000-year-old masterpiece of relaxation. You are drifting now, leaving the bamboo mats and the lotus ponds behind. The silk is turning into soft, modern linen, and the scent of jasmine is becoming the familiar, quiet smell of your own room. The journey is coming to an end, moving from the poetic banquets of the past to the gentle, silent reality of the present. As you leave the pavilion in your mind, let the sound of the guzheng become a distant, fading echo. The poet has laid down his brush, the moon has reached its zenith, and the world is a quiet, silver dream. You are falling deeper, moving away from the history of the high spirits and toward the ultimate peaceful destination of sleep. But for now, just let the warmth of the rice wine be your final comfort. You are at peace. You are home. The silver moon of the Tang Dynasty slowly merges with the soft, familiar shadows of your own bedroom. Our long journey through the history of the hazy mind has reached its final destination. We have walked through Neolithic fields, stood in the shadow of the pyramids, navigated the high seas, and larked in secret speakeasies. All those centuries of brewing, fermenting, and toasting have led to this moment, the quiet, heavy stillness of the here and now. The weight of history is no longer a burden. It is a warm, thick blanket that has been tucked around you by 1,000 generations of tired souls who also looked for a way to rest. You are lying perfectly still, feeling the cool air of the night brush against your skin. The sense of the past, the toasted barley, the resinous wine, the sharp juniper, and the sweet rice have all faded into the clean, neutral scent of home. Your body feels incredibly heavy, as if it were made of the same ancient clay as the first Sumerian jars. Every muscle has finally surrendered, the tension having been dissolved by the stories of those who came before you. You are part of a long, unbroken line of humans who have looked at the stars and decided that for tonight, the work is done. The history of getting wasted was never really about the drink itself. It was about the search for this very feeling, the moment when the world stops spinning, the voices grow quiet, and the mind finally finds permission to let go. You have that permission now. The emperors, the monks, the sailors, and the poets have all finished their cups and gone to bed. The breweries are silent, the taverns are locked, and the great rivers of the world flow on in the darkness, unobserved and peaceful. As you settle into the deepest part of your pillow, feel the rhythm of your own heart slowing down, becoming as steady as the ticking of an old apothecary clock. Your breath is deep and effortless, like the wind moving through a field of wild grain. The world outside your window is quiet, and the history of the world is just a collection of soft whispers in the back of your mind. You are safe, you are held, you are drifting into a sleep that is as old as time itself. The lights have dimmed, the fan hums a low, constant lullaby, and the journey is complete. There is nothing left to explore, nothing left to remember, just the velvet darkness and the absolute, blissful silence of a mind at rest. The stories have done their work, and the spirits of the past are now your guardians in the night.